Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be painting the Telemon Dreadnought, and this is how it will look at the end of the video. I've actually already covered the gold painting in another tutorial, the Sanguinor. You may check that out as well, but I'll include it in this video. So first off, I want to talk about the lore of this awesome unit in the game. The pilot of a Telemon Dreadnought was once a Custodes who suffered grievous injuries in battle. To preserve their lives, they are interred into a Dreadnought chassis, allowing them to continue surviving and serving the Emperor. Telemon Dreadnoughts are extremely rare. Creating one is labor intensive, and at least one plate has been worked on by the Emperor's hands. So before painting, I want to show you how I prepare the model. So I don't glue on the shoulder pads because I want to save that for doing like the marble effect. I also, with these models, I don't really glue on the top part here, but I do glue on the weapons on the top, the missiles, and also the head, because I want to add some OSL, like red OSL coming from below the chin of the helmet. But I'll put that in for now because I'll be painting these parts gold anyway later, so it's just easier to keep them there for now. So let's talk about the marble areas. It's quite simple. This technique has been used quite often. You get a dry cotton, what do you call it, not cotton, a baby wipe, and you just make some little tears in it, different shapes. You don't have to be too careful. It's a bit tricky. I've actually been experimenting with different techniques, so I'll probably be making some videos in the future trying those out too. So I use bold titanium white from Pro Acryl. It works really well in an airbrush, and if you want to use a brush, you can. What I did before I had an airbrush, I'll do this part and then I'll like dab it with a brush, and it kind of works. A little bit messy, but it's really fine. So I just spray it once, it's all done, and then I peel it off, and that's how it looks. Problem with this kind of wet wipes is, you know, you get all these little hairs stuck on it, and it's a bit annoying, and you've got to peel it all off, and it's a bit messy. So I did the base and the shoulders. They're not glued on. I'm just sticking them together just to show you how it looks. So it's pretty simple, this part. I don't really spend too much. I just want to get a nice little pattern, like a mottled marble effect. Then I get a clear paint. For this one I use Angron Red Clear, and I just go over these these four parts, the front and the back, and I just take my time. I have some nice clean layers, because in the past I used to spray too heavily, and what would happen, because it's so thin, this paint, it starts pooling, and then it will like start dripping, and it's uneven, and it looks quite messy. And then if you want to tidy it up, then it makes it even worse, because you're just adding layers and layers of paint on top of the lumps, and it just looks horrible. So take your time and just go. You can do it with a brush. Just make sure you thin it with a billow waller, and then you brush in one direction only, maybe going down. And then for the base I use Mortarion Green Clear paint, and I just do the same thing I did on the shoulders. I didn't spend too long on this base also. I just wanted to try it out and see how it looks. Maybe I'll change it later, but it's fine for now, I think. For this part you can use any kind of brown. You can even use pigment paints too from AK Interactive. And I just filled in some areas with some like dirt, and just to add a bit of interesting colors and just to darken it down a bit as well. So now I work on the silver areas. I've left the shoulder pads, the pauldrons off the model now to dry, and I start painting all the joints, the pipes, the back part, anywhere that needs this type of color. Then I use silver and I just highlight the areas I've just painted. Now onto the gold armor area. So I'll be using antique gold for this one. I think for the Sanguinor I used gold, just plain old gold. But they're slightly similar, like this is a bit darker and a bit more, I guess, antique. I use pigment fixer. I found out this works really well and there's no like powdery residue afterwards once it's all dry. I've noticed with like other thinners, when I touch the model my fingers are all gold. It doesn't fully set, or maybe I didn't use enough, but it's one of those kind of paints, pigment paints, you just gotta experiment with and see what works. I'm still learning myself. I'm using a brush for this part, but if you've got an airbrush and you want to save time, you could even mask all the silver areas and then just blast it with the airbrush. So I'm just taking my time now and just going through, you know, each plate and making sure it's a nice even coat, and I just move around the model and just keep doing this until you've finished it, really. I tried to be careful not to paint the aquila, the wings of the eagle, in the middle, because I want them to be silver as well. So for the OSL, I stick the helmet upside down on the blue tack and I just spray from below. For this one I use like a bright red, so any bright red is fine. This one is Evil Sun's Scarlet from Citadel, but seriously any bright red's fine, or even like an orange, like an orangey red. And I even spray below here and also in the little area where the head will go, and this is how it looks. Very simple. You can even do it with a brush, but for the head, the mask, the front, the grill, you can just dry brush it a little bit with that red. It might not be as smooth, but it still works. Then after all that's done, I've glued everything in. I've glued the shoulder pads, and I just finished off the tips, the edges of the shoulder pads. So it's basically done here, like the gold and the silver and the marble are done. I thought I'd also show you how I did it with an airbrush. So I'd put in a thinner first. I just used Vallejo thinner, just normal thinner, and I just poured it in with this little spoon thingy, and I just mix it then, and I use like an old brush. I just mix it in, make sure it's a nice consistency, like quite you gotta keep adding thinner now and again as well, because you don't want to put in too much thinner and then you put in the pigment and it's too watery. So I like to work up, really. I like to add as I go along, and then just to see how it goes then. So now it's getting nice and smooth, and once it's to a nice milky consistency, you can just spray away and it's fine. And then you can clean it with like soap, and it's not too bad to clean it. It's not as bad as I thought it would be. I've used alcohol based gold paints before, and that was a pain as well. So I use Liquitex Sepia, and I airbrushed this in toward like the recesses or any areas that may have some shadows, and just add a bit of cool shadows and like discoloration in different parts of the golden areas. And it's okay if there's a bit of spray over, because that can be easily wiped off as well. It doesn't dry immediately. There is some issues I found using this over this gold. You sometimes have like a splatter effect, like it doesn't adhere to the model, so you may need to be careful with the pressure and tone it down a little bit. I tidy up some of the areas with the silver I used earlier. I used the AK panel liner sepia color, and I just use this now just to basically add shadows and bring out some definition to the model, because there's so many little markings on it, like engraved areas, and it looks a bit hard to see them if they're not being highlighted. And I found out with this type of panel liner, it doesn't dull down the gold paints. Like if you use Citadel's Rakelin Flesh Shade or Agrax, usually those stay on top of it and they will like dull it down. So you can keep the shine of the model by using these type of panel liners. You don't have to use AK Interactive. Later on in the video I'll show you I'll be using what's the Tamiya. Yeah, I'll be using a Tamiya panel liner as well. And they all work really well, and they all go into all the recesses, and they still keep that shine as well, which is very important. So I go back with the antique gold now, and I just dry brush this gold over the parts of the model, and it really works. Like I've only just, this is kind of new footage because I stopped painting this model for a while, and then I've just came back to it. And what I've done, I've started going back over them with like a very light, it's kind of like dust basically. And what happens, it really tones down some of the shadows I've made with that ink, and it just, I don't know, it just brightens it up a bit. You may even use the gold paints as well, because I use antique gold for the main body, but even gold as like a nice highlight works too. So the final touch-ups, should we say, I go back to like the OSL areas, and then I use a orange fluorescent paint and a red fluorescent paint, and I just, with a brush, I just go over, you know, inside the hood, I think it's called, and just where the helmet sits as well. I use Mephiston red, and I do the same with the eyes. I use Mephiston red for the eyes and these little rocket tips as well. Then I use Evil Sun Scarlet for the eyes again and the tips of the rockets. I kind of, it's a bit thick, so I just dab it on. I did it from the pot, to be honest. I'm not sure if I'm breaking any rules there. And then I use Troll Slayer Orange as like the final dot. Here we go, I'm doing the eyes on camera. It's always terrifying because I might mess it up, or it's blurry. Anyway, and then I add the dots as well to the tips of each of the rockets too. Then I use Telesar Blue, and I just go over this one gem that's in the crotch area. I thought there'd be more gems. So this is the panel line I mentioned earlier from Tamiya, and I just use this now to go over all the silver areas and all the little any deep kind of recesses, and I also go over the silver part of the Aquila. Now that we've finished painting our Telemon, I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I did, and if you liked what you saw, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more painting and hobby related videos. I'd love to hear your thoughts or any questions you might have in the comments below. So until next time, keep painting and remember to enjoy the process. There are no mistakes, only happy accidents.